The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe.
Greater Salem, New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce presents Success in the 603, a podcast focusing on Granite Staters who have had success in the public or private sector. We'll hear stories of how these people came to be, where they are, and what you can do to get there too. Sit back and enjoy. You are in wicked awesome company.
Welcome back, everyone, to Success in the 603. My name is Donna Morris, and I serve as the president of the Greater Salem Chamber of Commerce. And Mr. Craig Dufton.
I am Mr. Craig Dufton, according to Donna. So I appreciate everybody being here today. I'm with Keller Williams Realty. I'm also actually a proud new member of the board of the New Hampshire Philharmonic, who we're going to be talking about today.
So as you heard in our introduction, the spirit of our podcast is to find out all those different stories that are happening throughout New Hampshire about people finding their passion and becoming successful and sharing that advice with you so that you can maybe take some tips and tricks into making your life the most that you can out of it. So, Craig, you want to introduce our guest?
I do. To my left, I have Mark Latham. He's the director of music for the New Hampshire Philharmonic, and he's also the conductor. And I have Gary Miller, who's the president of the Philharmonic for the last 14 years. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for being here. I was so excited for this show. We rearranged our start time to get Mark able to be here, so I'm excited to have you.
Hi, Craig. Hi, Donna. Lovely to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Although I do feel like we should have changed our intro music for you guys.
Yeah, we should have done a little Russian moods. So let's talk about the New Hampshire Phil. The Phil's been around for quite a long time, Gary, right? 130 plus years now?
Yeah, just about 135 if the math works out correctly. Started up in Pennacook, New Hampshire, and with the support of a number of bank folks in Manchester, moved down to Manchester and is the oldest, longest performing orchestra in the state.
Wow. And there was another competing orchestra too at one point in time, right? The New Hampshire Symphony, or is that still around?
That's gone? Still around. That's over in Nashua. That's had many iterations too, and that has a long and storied history, not quite as long as ours. Mostly professional musicians from around New England, but this is more history. The
Phil's more of a. Are they more professional? How many professional musicians are in the Philharmonic?
We have, most of us are winds and brass are professionals in one way or another. A lot of them are music teachers who play professionally. A few of our string players are professionally. But what's unique about the Philharmonic is it's a bit like what's called the Boston Philharmonic, in that we have a mix of professionals, teachers, a few exceptional college students, a few exceptional community players, and a few very exceptional high school students, of which, in fact, our soloist is one of them. Our soloist this weekend, Rorik Cunningham.
He's a cellist.
A cellist.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be exciting because the Russian cellists are pretty amazing. That's going to be a great
show.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Performance.
No, it's just a challenge for a cellist. The music that you're playing this week. Do you want to talk about the music that we're talking about this week?
Sure. Well, as you said, it's an all-Russian program. The first half is one of the great cello concertos of the 20th century by Dmitri Shostakovich, and the second half is the huge, fantastic, wonderful, exotic tone poem, as it were, by Rimsky-Korsakov, Scheherazade. Very colourful, very rich, and it sort of has it's oriental, you might say, in flavour. But the cello concerto is considered really one of the, perhaps along with the Dvorak concerto, one of the great cello masterpieces. It's also one of the technically most difficult cello concertos. And I've known our young soloist, who's a senior in high school still.
Wow.
And I know his teacher well, Harel Geitheim. And for some time I was suggesting that to his teacher, well, maybe it's time Rorik learned Shostakovich. Very few people his age, in fact, very few people of any age can pull this piece together. But Rorik rose to the challenge. He joined the Phil. This is his third season in the Phil, so he sits in our cello section. And so we thought before he leaves us, we'd like to give him the opportunity to perform with us. And his teacher said, I've taught many really good cellists, but Rorik is a cut above all of them.
Excellent. It's going to be exciting.
Well, we're going to have him on as well.
Yeah, I think we might have to. We could have a show with all three. We could have a show with everybody on the whole Philharmonic.
What part of the state is he from?
He's from Manchester. He goes to Central High School.
And he's a senior. Do you know, is he going to college?
He's about to endeavour on various auditions for some of the top conservatories in the country.
Nice.
So we'll see where he ends up.
So how did you get involved 14 years ago with the New Hampshire Phil?
It's all a blur. I had actually, through the Concord Chamber, one of my favorite organizations, as well as the Salem Chamber, I had a business associate who introduced me to the Phil, and he was on the board at the time, invited me to join and became involved, and worked with him for a couple of years, and then other pursuits took him in different directions, but been here since and seen a lot of changes. It's been a challenge. When the recession hit a few years ago, money went away, corporate donations went away. It was a real challenge to try and keep the organization together, and it still is. It's starting to come back. But as people focus more on STEM education and understand that arts are a big part of that, and that it really leads to challenge thinking and to build intellectual creativity, arts is on a resurgence. The state's been at the forefront of that. There's a lot of folks working within the state to build arts up again, and because of that, there's a strong resurgence. And since moving to Salem, it's been an amazing reception here over at the new Seifert Performing Arts Center. The reception's been phenomenal. Folks like you, Craig, and Donna are so supportive in talking about everything that's happening there and really promoting it, and that's what it takes.
I think it's exciting. I'm sorry, Donna. I think it's exciting as a Salem citizen that we have such a wonderful gem.
Oh, it's amazing.
And I don't want it to be a hidden gem anymore. I'm tired of hearing about it being a hidden gem or being the best kept secret and all this other stuff, because it was, I took my wife there on Christmas time, and Donna was there with her husband. It was just an amazing show, for just a variety of different things for children and adults. It made it great.
We always have Donna, we always have a great holiday show, but there's more to the season than just the holiday show. And this is a prime example. Here we are at the end of January, the doldrums of January. Everybody wants to get out and do something different. And it's amazing to come out and hear what these passionate folks have to share. And it truly, you talk about passion and people finding that, and the folks that sit on our stage truly have that passion. And it's amazing what they go through to share that.
That's what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, because the first time I met you, it was at a chamber event on energy and economic development, and I had no idea that you had this passion for music, and you were involved in the Salem High School, driving the truck and all this, their shows where they go away. And so I guess, can you share a little bit about your love for music and how, it's a part of your life? It's not, you've got other parts of your life, and what we would say to people out there. I love the part where it's more STEAM education than STEM education. You got to have the A for arts in there. So you want to talk a little bit about your journey?
Absolutely. Well, I have a technical background. I started in the electrical trades and went to school, got a degree in electrical engineering. Just a small one, just an associate's, just to whet the appetite. Went off into business after that, a variety of excursions, a number of different careers, and they all led me to where I am today. It's no easy path. It wasn't anything I said I'm going to be working in the energy industry. Even though I started out as an electrician, that wasn't my goal. My goal was that I was going to have 3 or 4 different construction companies, different phases, and I'd be retired by the time I was 50 and enjoying life in 8 different houses around the world. But here I am in Salem and enjoying every minute of it. It's a great place to be. It gets shortchanged because there are so many wonderful things happening here in town, and because of proximity to Massachusetts, it gets lost in the whole shuffle of everything going on. Why is music important? I love listening to music. I always have. My 6th grade drum teacher would probably be churning in their grave thinking that I'm involved with music, because that didn't work so well in 6th grade.
Mine too.
Yeah, for me, it's still a lot of dots on the page that don't have a lot of relevance other than they go up, down, or for some duration of time, and I know it horrifies people when I say that. But it's an absolute delight, and what helped to stoke my passion is when I met my wife. She was involved with a choir over at Pleasant Street United Methodist Church, where I met her. And her being involved in choir got me involved, and that rekindled some interest in music. And as we had our children, got them involved and saw just how much it really does affect creativity and what it does to help people think better. It really is based in science. It's based in mathematics. When you really get into learning what music is, it's amazing what it brings to the whole thought process. And something that we're starting to lose in education is that whole process of thought. And that's why I'm excited about music in education, because it encourages students to think again of any age. I went back and started playing piano a number of years ago. It was a good challenge. I share frequently that I don't mind getting up in front of 1,000 people and giving a speech on pretty much any topic in the world. But to sit down at a board with 88 keys on it after a 9-year-old just got through playing a 3.5-minute Bach concerto, and I have my 45 seconds of music to play, that was scary.
Humbling.
Florida.
Exceptionally so. And then to walk off after my grand performance and have another 10-year-old come in and play another 5 minutes from memory, and I'm struggling with my 8 measures on one page. It's an exciting experience, and it helped me to further understand how challenging it really is to appreciate the math and how integrated it is with music, and it's a foreign language as well. You're learning something that's very foreign to our normal way of thinking. But it's an exciting experience. When our children got involved in middle school at our behest of keeping them involved in music, they grew up listening to a lot of music and all varying kinds of music. When they got involved in middle school, we were right behind them, helping them along and supporting the program. When they transitioned to high school, that was an easy thing. The high school has a parents' music club that's responsible for support, both financial and logistic support for the students and everything that they do. Amazing program that Marty Clausen's built over there.
Yes.
They do major trips every other year, so the kids get the experience of traveling and what it's like being part of a big team like that, and the logistics of moving. When our kids were in over 200 people on a trip like that, it's just amazing to see all the pieces.
We have an 18-wheeler, for God's sakes, at Salem High. We have an 18-wheeler that's parked over at the Hague School.
Well, there's a quick story to that became a parent-driven initiative. Prior to that, we rented budget trucks every weekend, usually 2 of them, and it cost a fair amount of money to do that. And the parents would have to handle that equipment on and off the truck 5 or 6 times in a weekend, and frankly, we were getting tired of that. So a few of us got together and said, there's got to be a better way. Looked at other bands with whom we were competing with around the country, and when we went to various competitions around the country, saw that they had 18-wheelers, and so a few of us got together and said, there's got to be a way to make this happen. Met with Superintendent Dr. Delahanty and explained all the great benefits, how it helps the equipment last longer. It gives the kids ownership. It's closer to the ground, less chance of getting hurt, easier transition. We could put the kids in charge of moving their equipment, another level of responsibility for them.
Sure.
And they've taken great ownership of that, and the PMC is amazing in their support of that, as is the district, and it's saved the district. Since we implemented that back in 2010, we've saved the district somewhere around $70,000.
Oh, excellent.
So we need to take a quick commercial break, but Mark, I'm dying to hear your story, how music came into your life. But just before we do that, I just wanted to say thank you to our sponsors.
We do have to pay the bills.
We do.
We do.
So very quickly, Armon Networks is based in New Hampshire, and they offer customized managed IT services, cybersecurity services, and structured cabling services for small and mid-sized businesses throughout New England. They offer managed IT services, cloud services, network security, structured cabling, all sorts of different things, backup and disaster recovery, which is key. And please give them a call. Support the people that support this program at 603-642-4010, or check them out online, www.armonnetworks.com. Thank you very much, everyone at Armon.
Now, Mark, it's a pleasure to have you here. I met you a couple of weeks ago. We met at a Rotary meeting. You came in and you spoke to us, and you were enthralling for me, because I was like a guy from South Africa makes his way to Salem, New Hampshire, and is standing here talking to me. I just think no matter what topic we're talking about, I think that's an amazing thing about being on this planet, is that people come from everywhere, all walks of life, and just when you think you know something, you just have no idea what the world's about.
Yeah, this is right. So I was born in Tanzania, and my dad was a doctor there, an English guy. My mum's American. They met hitchhiking in France, of all places. And so I think I was about 4, and my mum's mother, who was living in California, somehow managed to send us a toy piano for Christmas. And so this is my brother and I both started on a keyboard instrument, but on this little toy piano. And then we moved to Dar es Salaam, the capital. We've actually got a real, it was like out of tune, but a real upright piano. So we continued with that. And then when I was almost 7, we moved to England. And apparently, I don't remember, I heard somebody, we'd never had a television, so I apparently was watching the TV and saw somebody playing violin, and I didn't know what it was. All I knew was a guitar. So I told my mum, oh yeah, I want to play the guitar. My mum did not like any kind of pop music. She said, no, you don't. And I said, no, I do. No, you know that guitar you play with a stick. She said, oh, the violin. Anyway, so to cut a long story short, I started the violin, and that became my main instrument after piano. And so music was always part of my life. I was fortunate to go to particularly high school with a very, very good music program. Then I decided this is what I want to do with my life. Studied in London, then came to America to continue studying. Then I was in Canada with a string quartet in St. John's in Newfoundland, and that's when my conducting started, purely by happenstance, because there was a very strong, well, there still is a very strong Suzuki program there, and it seemed there had been a fight between their conductor and the board. They didn't have anything for a year. They had a string orchestra, a very good one, and then they asked me, as a sort of somebody who's neutral, would I like to conduct their string orchestra? I said, why not? I have no idea what a conductor does, but that's what I'll do. So I jumped in the deep end, as it were, and I was their music director for 4 years of that string orchestra. And some of the players, one of them who was a student of mine, in fact, has gone on to be assistant concertmaster of Vancouver Symphony. So they were a very strong group.
Wow.
And then I ended up moving to this area. I actually lived in Newmarket, New Hampshire for 2 years. And I knew of an orchestra that a friend of mine had an association with, because she had known the conductor of their orchestra, it's the Nashua Chamber Orchestra, and she said, yeah, you should try to audition. I had no idea. I had a little tape from the string orchestra I conducted in Canada in a mall. That was the only videotape. So I sent it off, and they said, okay, we'll audition you. I was one of 6 finalists. So I auditioned. They chose me. I became music director of the Nashua Chamber Orchestra. This was probably in 1998. And it was a funny story, because I thought, oh well, this is kind of a real job, I better buy. I hadn't used a baton before, so I said, surely they were expecting a conductor with a baton. So I buy a baton, and then I realised, having played in orchestras all my life, actually, I had no idea. Well, how does a conductor actually hold the baton? As a sort of orchestral player, you don't really think about that. It just sticking out of their hand. So I was okay. So I figured it out. Anyway, I as it were, passed the audition. They invited me, and I had a lovely time with the Nashua Chamber Orchestra. Then I became music director of Cambridge Symphony, then of the Youth Orchestra in Manchester, and so on. And I ended up with the New Hampshire Philharmonic. I twice done rehearsals with them, and then I think it must have been 2012.
Yeah, just about.
2012, I think this is my 7th season. They had a bit of a crisis. Their conductor left kind of quickly, and because they'd seen me at work, the what was he? Paul Hoffman, who was the manager at the time, executive director at the time. Apparently, I was a natural fit. He invited me to come, and I said, "Fantastic!" And it's been a wonderful experience ever since.
Excellent. I think what's interesting there is a lot of the guests that we've had on the show too, wherever they got, you took that chance, like the Newfoundland, like, all right, they're out. You got to get outside of your comfort zone in order to grow into something you might be passionate about. And I'm seeing that, like, you have to see the opportunities.
I think that's absolutely true. I think any success in life comes about, in part, as you say, through willing to get out of your comfort zone, jump out of the box that you're used to, take a risk, and just see what happens, and kind of go with that flow. And you often you encounter things because you don't know what they're going to be, that are unexpected, and you just actually surf that particular wave. And off you go. And sometimes the wonderful thing about it is that, which I think is, if you want to lead an exciting life, is that it takes you in directions you never thought you would have encountered in the past. And that's what could be better than that.
So you're this isn't just your only gig per se. You're a director of the symphony at UMass Lowell too.
That's
the
correct.
Orchestra.
Yeah,
the orchestra.
Yeah, the orchestra. Well, I spend 2 full days at UMass Lowell. I direct their orchestra. I teach a seminar conducting. Nowadays, I'm also coaching chamber music, and I have some violin and viola students as well. So I feel like I'm very blessed because it's very rare. It's usually when I'm doing emails that are way too many that this feels like work. But when I'm actually working with kids, working with adults, conducting, teaching, it never feels like work to me. So I'm blessed that way,
Are you still involved in Manchester music too?
I do. It's a fantastic community music school. I spend Wednesdays. I have a lot of high school kids. I've got one really exceptional 11-year-old violin student. So I think it's. I've been fortunate. I've always loved teaching. I know some players don't particularly gravitate to teaching.
It's not easy.
It's not easy
to teach somebody else.
Right, but I've always. Really enjoyed it. I've loved it actually, and B, I think if we can communicate something valuable, even if it's I'm a violin teacher or a viola teacher or a chamber music teacher, but quite often I'm talking about, let's say, Russian history, or sometimes, like I remember one of my students was doing a piece by Vivaldi. I said, "Do you know where Venice is?" They had, so okay, you have to draw me a map of Italy. This kind of thing, and then not only that, but they came back with a little picture of a gondola, and somebody's rowing the gondola. Fantastic.
Perfect.
One of the reasons we wanted to bring Mark in is he's very passionate about the education side of music, as he's just shared with us.
Yep.
But from the stage, it's a different presence. Our previous director, Tony, was absolutely brilliant and was very educated about music and was a fantastic teacher. And we had sessions before the concert so that he could share some of that information, try to set the tone. Mark's a little bit different in that he does that from the stage. So as he's introducing a piece, it becomes a class in how to listen to the music and what's important. He'll have a couple of different pieces in the orchestra play a measure or two to highlight what you really want to be listening to, what he senses is important, and why this piece is the historic piece that it is, and why people want to play it. So it's a real treat to have somebody of that mindset that wants to engage the orchestra. So it's not just, a lot of folks used to have a challenge listening to classical music because you had to keep your nose up high enough in the air, and you couldn't cough, you couldn't breathe until that perfect moment when everything was done. It's a very relaxed atmosphere, and we want people to be there because we have somebody that's willing to be educational from the stage, and that makes a huge difference.
I'd agree with that. I had never been, and I went to the Christmas concert, and you really you tell a story. You're a storyteller, and all of a sudden I'm at the ball before, and then this is the music that's going to be playing at the ball. It was fantastic.
Right.
I went from that, why am I here? I'm not super savvy in the classical, to like, oh, I get it now, and I loved it.
I see part of my job as to remind people that all music has the potential to be just really fun. Educational, yes, but transporting you somewhere that you've maybe never been before, or that's going to arouse your emotions in some way, going to excite you, going to inspire you, going to fill you with passion. And unfortunately, in the last maybe 50 years, orchestral music has gotten a bad rap because it hasn't been presented well. There's been a sort of stuffy atmosphere in a concert hall. People are supposed to get dressed a certain way. We got the orchestra on stage, and the conductor dressed in a weird suit, and little communication between orchestra, conductor, and audience. And I'm trying to get rid of that. So let's all have a great time together. The music, like for instance, we're going to play this coming weekend, Shostakovich. It's wild stuff. It's like I don't know, Jimi Hendrix on some acid trip or something. It's it's really crazy stuff.
The pieces they're long pieces too. They're challenging pieces. I would assume for any musician. They're 45 minutes long. One of them, right? 30.
Yeah. The Scheherazade is this is his takes you on this with the Arabian Nights on these journeys like Sinbad the Sailor and then this crashing wave and all this kind of thing. It's good. 45-minute ride. Shostakovich is probably about 32 minutes long. But Shostakovich is you just get into the Russian soul in particular, and we had the Philadelphia Orchestra concertmaster play a solo with us in October, the Sibelius violin concerto, and he gave a masterclass before it, and our soloist for this concert, the cellist Rorik, played for him, and his David Kim's main comment was, "Look, you play unbelievable, but there's not enough suffering." Russian suffering in your playing.
Sure.
It sounds too pretty. You've got to find that edge, that intense
The expression.
yeah.
When was the music written? When
the Shostakovich was written in 1959 for the cellist Rostropovich. So it's in the middle of, it was after the death of Stalin, but nevertheless this incredibly repressive regime.
Cold War.
Yep. Shostakovich, it said, there's a great understanding. If you want to understand the history of the Soviet Union, all you have to do is actually listen to Shostakovich's music.
Well, we'll be able to see it this weekend on Saturday at 7:30 and also on Sunday at 2 o'clock at
Salem
the
High
Seifert High School at Salem High. Beautiful, like you talked about, Gary, beautiful location, lighting, sound. What made you go there? Who decided? I was not on the board, obviously, then, and I had no say in it. But how did you find Salem, or how did Salem find you?
We were anticipating your participation.
That's what it was.
So we said, we're moving to Salem to get Craig.
I don't think
it's all about Craig.
I don't think my head's going to fit in these headphones anymore.
We had, for many years, we have been performing at the Palace up in Manchester.
Right.
Great facility. Folks up there have done a fantastic job turning that around. It's a heritage location, and we still do have a phenomenal relationship with the folks up there. The challenge is their business model was such that they shifted a little bit. They started going more to Broadway production type shows, and that really crunched our schedule and when we could be there. Principally, we were Saturday nights, and once in a while we'd do Sunday. Originally, when I first started with the organization, everything was fairly limited to Saturday. We'd do some traveling around the state to do some, what we call a runoff show, where we have a particular set of music and then carry that around to different locations. And it makes good sense to do that. Everybody's practiced. Now it's just changed locations so other people can enjoy what folks have worked on. So it became challenging with the schedule at the Palace, and we moved from there to Derry, over to the Performing Arts Center at Pinkerton, and beautiful facility there, fantastic reception there, but we weren't getting the audience we anticipated, and as much as there were folks that really wanted to see things happen and be a part of the community, we didn't get the feeling out of that we expected. It became a challenge. There are things you do when you take those chances and you make that leap. There's things that happen that say, okay, this is the right place to be, or no, this just isn't working. And after, I think we were there for 4 years, we had a great relationship with the choir director there, Tom Quigley, who was the original reason we got in there, working with the choir, and we had some great performances between the orchestra and the choir.
That was our initial link, but in fact our initial invitation to come to Derry was a nice story, because I programmed an evening of music inspired by Shakespeare.
Nice.
And to sort of augment that, we asked 3 actors if they would say some of the speeches before, let's say, Romeo and Juliet by Prokofiev. They'd do a scene together on stage, and then we'd play. And it turned out the director of the theatre at the time, his wife was one of the actresses, and he heard our performance. And the next day, in fact, we got an email, would you be interested in moving permanently to Derry? So I'll let you finish.
And it was good, but not where we expected it to be. It was a 750 or 60 seat theater. Right. And typical audiences were 250. Sometimes the holiday concert, it was packed. Mm-hmm. We had all the parents from the choir that were there, and there were over 100 students in the choir. Great voice. Tom did a fantastic job with them. but something just wasn't clicking. Opportunity arose once the renovations were done at the high school. Talked with Dr. Delahanty and said, hey, here's an opportunity. You've got this great performance facility. It's built to be able to have professional productions. It has a huge fly space, the space on stage where you can move sets up and down behind the curtain.
An orchestra pit.
It has a beautiful orchestra pit that when folks come to see our show or when they show up in February to see Bye Bye Birdie that the drama department's putting on at the high school, it's a professional facility.
Right.
It's absolutely fantastic. The sound, the engineers did a great job in designing the facility. The sound there is very live.
Great acoustic.
The acoustics are phenomenal. So when I talked with Dr. Delahanty, said, hey, what do you think? We started a conversation, and it took a little bit to get there, but we moved there in the fall, and it's been a phenomenal reception. The staff over there, Molly, who's the production manager there, has done a fantastic job helping us to be at home and helping us to fit in where we can. Marty Clausen, the music director over there, has been fantastic about accommodating where we need to be and creating rehearsal space for us. Lauren Piethman, now the director of the, forgive me, Lauren, I can't remember the full title, but she's basically director of that facility now and coordinating all activities there. And coincidentally, Tom Quigley's daughter, so we've got some heritage following through there. She's building a great chorus program there, and her replacement on the teaching side has been doing a great job there. And long term, we want to develop a relationship in the community, that we become a resource for the community so that we can have some mentorship opportunities.
Sure.
We've always wanted students to be engaged in the orchestra. For the years I've been involved, we've always had students of caliber in the orchestra in various instruments. It's amazing the impact we can have in the community. A number of years ago, we had a student that was at Salem High School when my kids were in band, and he played violin in the orchestra. And we don't have violins at the high school. Well, we didn't at the time. There are some private lessons there now. But what I did see is that he'd come and perform with the orchestra, with the Phil, and he'd take that professionalism back and help kids in the high school elevate to that level of play. And every year, for my sakes, I think my wife and I have been involved with the orchestra, with the music program at the high school, almost 16 years now. And our kids are long out of high school and still involved because it's amazing what they do there, and we want to support that. Every year, the performances keep getting better and better. The level of play keeps going up. The level of engagement that the students have just continues to improve. And when you talk with all the folks that do the instruction within the program, especially for the folks on the winter percussion side of things, which is a whole nother world, the growth that you see in the students is amazing when they come in as freshmen. It's moved down into the middle schools. We're starting to see more activity in the middle schools, more instruction. So by the time they get to the high school, they're playing at a different level. Stressless, they're creating better players. And as a result, better students and better citizens because they're more engaged. They understand they need to give back. They help the other students coming behind them. It's a neat little community to see the way it develops, and people just keep continuing to grow. And again, the performance level is phenomenal.
Excellent. Commercial time?
Commercial time, and then I have something I want to say about teamwork, too. So we'd like to thank our sponsors, which makes success in the 603 possible. Many thanks to Enterprise Bank, very community-involved bank. They have over 24 branches in 19 communities throughout southern New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and more than 530 team members. They've grown over 30 years. This is their 30-year anniversary, and they've always remained and always will remain a genuine independent community bank, locally owned and locally managed. You can visit their New Hampshire headquarters right here in Salem, New Hampshire at 55 Main Street, or give them a call, 603-894-5631, or they're online at enterprisebanking.com. Thank you, Enterprise Bank. So one of the things that I think people may or may not realize, I mean, I just did flute in high school, but there is a team camaraderie when you play a piece of music with a group. You're relying on the percussion to come in at the right time, and you're working as a unit. And that, can you talk a little bit about that's another skill that's being developed in the process of performing a piece.
Yeah, I think that's for me one of the joys, one of the miracles of ensemble playing, particularly of orchestral playing. You've got 50, 60, 70 musicians, all very good at what they do, all with their own egos, you might say, but willing to participate in a joint adventure to make something that's bigger than the sum of its parts. And it's quite unusual. And in my role as a music director, I feel it isn't to impose my will. It's actually to shepherd these energies in a way that's going to make them realize that they're participating in something wonderful and marvelous, but at the same time, obviously, to bring out the essence of the music as well. So I think, and I said this at the Rotary Club, I think for me, an orchestra is, in a way, a sort of metaphor for the ideal community, in that you've got these, as we say, these independent people, consciously or not, participating in something really beautiful, not trying to get ahead, as it were, not trying to be the star of the show, but willing to do their best to make something that's collectively both unified and wonderful.
I'm going to refrain from political commentary right now.
I think it's amazing to me too. Yeah, no politics. Yeah. Well, the only Russians we're talking about today are composers.
They're all dead.
Yeah, and unfortunately. But the great part about it, and I pointed it out to Janine and our studio audience. We were sitting there, we're a few rows back, and everybody's doing scales, and there's 60 something. How many pieces are there? 60 something.
Something like that, yeah.
And they're all just doing their thing, and then all of a sudden everything stops, and everybody starts all at one, and it's kind of hilarious, because when you think about it, you've got a community of individuals all doing their own thing, and then when it comes time that something needs to be done, everybody gets together and gets it done, and it is the ultimate teamwork. I mean, it really is the definition of teamwork.
Let's take that and put it in the rest of, like, working in a business environment, working in a political environment, working in a nonprofit. You bring all these great minds together and
exactly.
make
so you hit the
bigger.
Political side again. You slipped.
It was a sandwich. It was in there.
But it was well done. To that point, two quick stories. When you look at marching band, it's a very coordinated effort. The band now is about 100, 110, 112 members. And to see those students start with a piece of music, and everybody gets their music for their particular instrument and part, and they go learn that. And many of us appreciate the challenge that it takes to learn that foreign language, and the relationship between those little black dots on the page going up and down and all around. So that's one level of intensity. Then you get another book that says, okay, here's the map that we're going to follow while you're walking on the field doing the show, or running, or jumping, or whatever is engaged. So now there's a different level of learning something and then coordinating that with where that's going to be relative to that note on the page. When you look at the complexity that it takes to put that together, it's astonishing. And the kids just roll right into it, and part of that's an age thing and having that capability in youth. But it's still phenomenal to watch that process. The first week they come in, or the first few days they come in, and it's okay, we're getting the music together. Then you get the music together. Then you put them on the field and start the physical movement. And it's phenomenal to see that teamwork happen when everybody comes together. And the encouragement within the team when somebody does something that's difficult and they do it exceptionally well, the support's in the team. Everybody congratulates them and says, yep, that was a great job, you did great. And conversely, when it doesn't meet the right performance level, with great respect, and that's the key that they learn, they challenge others and say, yeah, that didn't go quite so well. Maybe not quite so nicely, but with that level of respect. And it's amazing to see that peer-to-peer within a team to be able to build and make that happen. The second story, and more impactful, we were at a competition in Dayton, Ohio a few years ago, and there's a lot of electronics involved, and at one point, just about midpoint in the show, the front end, or the pit, as it's so affectionately known, basically all the heavy equipment, the marimbas and keyboards and so forth, it's all electronic now to get the amplification out, get the sound out in some of these facilities. They pretty much set the tone for what's going to happen behind them with everybody moving around on the floor. Well, at one point the electronics failed. And without skipping even a moment, one of the students who was playing keyboard and had a key role at that time as far as keeping the momentum of the show going, turned around and went over to the bells and started ringing out on the bells what he was supposed to be playing on the keyboard. Without hesitation, without any, geez, this failed, what do I have to do?
And nobody was wiser.
None the wiser at all. It just blended right into the program, and all of the staff made comment to him afterwards. There's always a debriefing after the show, and said, what made you think of that? He said, all I know is we had to keep going because everybody that was doing their floor program would have been lost if we didn't keep the music going. To me, that's the epitome of teamwork. And when you look around, and there's some examples, people talk about a football team here in New England that's, amazing for teamwork. Well, that brought it home, and to have students of that level to be able to bring it together and exhibit what it's all about. It's phenomenal, and they share that with other organizations.
But how does that influence you, Mark, on being the choices of music? I mean, obviously, this is a very difficult piece that you're playing this weekend, a very challenging piece. You know your orchestra, you know your symphony, you know them well, right? You know each player, but are you challenging them every time? Are these every year? Is there a direction to challenge people more and more, or?
Well, what's delightful for me as music director of the New Hampshire Phil is that. So 2 seasons ago, we did a piece by Hindemith called Mattis der Malen, and it's a sort of his Hindemith's musical interpretation of a painting, a medieval painting, and it's very difficult. But I programmed it. I knew Val, who's been in the orchestra for a long time. It's one of his favourite pieces. So we'll go for it. But then I'm beginning over the summer to start looking at the score properly. I said, I'm not sure this was such a good idea, actually. It's like, this is really hard. But then we read it, even at the first reading, and the Philharmonic's unbelievable. And this happens to me time and again, that I think, wow, this is...
You think you're setting the bar, but it's really,
and they just leap over it. Rising to the challenge. And this is the phenomenal thing about the Phil, is that it doesn't seem to be a problem for them. Our first reading, even of Scheherazade, was fantastic. Just going back a little bit to I mean, the music is such a good vehicle to get kids, as Gary was saying, to invest themselves in something in terms of teamwork, to extend themselves. And I have if we have time, do I have time?
Yeah, we have about 5 or 6 more minutes.
Okay, this is a wonderful story with our soloist, in fact, Rurik. So I was asked to guest conduct the sort of New Hampshire Youth Orchestra their holiday gala show in December, I guess it was. Because their regular conductor couldn't do it, and it's also one of their main fundraising events. And I know it's just given the program to conduct, so I didn't choose the program. And it was an arrangement of Carol of the Bells by the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and it was called the Cellist of Sarajevo. And they're saying, well, that's interesting. And the Cellist of Sarajevo was this guy who he was in the Sarajevo Philharmonic. When the Balkan War started, and so Sarajevo was besieged by the Serbs. They dropped a bomb on a queue of people queuing for bread, and 22 people were killed. And this cellist decided, I'm going to go and make a statement in peril of my life. And he goes out, dresses at the same, goes out at 4:00 every afternoon to play Albinoni Adagio for strings, to show that the arts overcome indignity. They show music, any kind of art, show that human dignity will always survive.
Right.
And he goes day after day to play the Albinoni. So I asked Rurik, would he play? So I call him the night before the concert. Would he play this piece? And then we find it on the line and online, and he says, yeah, well, I'll play. Well, we choose the section he's going to play, because I wanted the audience to say, this is what you would have heard if you'd been in Sarajevo in 1992. And but I turned up the next day, just before the concert. Not only has he learned it, he's decided it would sound better with another cellist plucking away with him. And he's written out the part for both of them. And in other words, he'd taken the initiative to make it even better. And I tell the story to the audience, and I'm told they'd never... it was like the biggest donations they'd ever received.
Excellent.
That kind of, and I think that made a difference, because I showed, that music transcends our differences, and this is why we, I think our mission in the Philharmonic is to Can we bring all these forces together? Audience, kids, adults, highly trained professionals, into a vehicle that shows that music is not only is it live, but it's bringing us to something higher.
Well, let's talk for the last few minutes about the Phil and how people out there in New Hampshire and Northern Mass and anywhere in the world can help. How can people help? I mean, we're, obviously we need donations. We need the money to keep this program running. So. Right. Talk a little bit of the different ways that you're going, and let's talk about the program too, Mark, for the rest of the year too, because you have a wonderful show coming up in March too, as well as in May.
So as far as donations, best place to go is our website, nhphil.org, and there's some information there about how to get your funds to us, and would appreciate any and all. We'll take it.
Absolutely.
And I mean this sincerely, if you're at an age and you're doing some estate planning and you want to have your estate live on after you pass, would be more than happy to work with you to set up some endowments. That's an important part to keeping our future going. I certainly want this to live on far beyond my time with the organization. It's an amazing resource, and certainly like to see it grow. It can only happen with having money in the bank to do that. The second biggest part is having butts in the seats.
Yep.
Live performance is amazing. When you hear performances that have been recorded, they're cleansed, they're sterilized, especially that are CDs. You don't get the rich sound that you used to have with vinyl pressings and all of the little idiosyncrasies that happen within a live performance. You need to be at a live performance, and so you can get to hear the instruction from somebody that's so educated and passionate about what music is, like Mark. You need to be there. We've only got 740 seats available, and it sounds like a big number, but it's not. And it's amazing, whether it's at the high school or whether it's at the Phil, when you have a full facility that's engaged in the performance, it takes it to a different level because everybody plays off of each other.
Nice.
When the orchestra hears that there's a full house, it brings up the energy level, and you can actually see a difference in the orchestra. They sit up a little straighter. You get the stage left side of the orchestra, they start rocking into the music, because violinists never rock. They're very, very solid. They don't move. The other side, the cellists and that side, they get rocking. You can really see them get into it. And when you have a large live audience that's engaged, and you can hear the appreciation for the work that they're doing on the stage, it makes a difference, and they do feed off of each other, and I'd encourage folks.
And butts in the seats helps pay the bills too.
Absolutely,
I mean,
does.
If we filled each show every time, we would have no issues with money to keep it going forever.
And that gives us a chance to build the programming out even further. Right now, typically we're doing 4 to 5 performances a year and some run-ons. We'd love to be able to build that out to a bigger scale, and would really enjoy being able to bring more resources to the orchestra. It takes money to do that, both butts in the seats, individual donations, endowments, but we also need the corporate side too.
Sure.
And that's where things fell apart in the recession. In the recession, we lost a lot of that corporate support. That's starting to come back. My company, Unitil, I got to put the plug in.
Plug Unitil.
Yeah. I manage relationships with our larger customers in the Concord and the Fitchburg areas, and it's out of the market area here in Salem, but we do gas here as well.
Yep.
I don't have a presence here for the company for Salem, but we do have other folks within the company, and their support is my being here and helping to work with the leadership at the Phil here for the past 14 years. I'm blessed that I have that opportunity and allowed me to do that. And we need more corporate support like that. We need more folks to buy into the concept and to really understand that, yes, arts are a key part of learning. It builds that creativity, it builds that intellectualism, and it helps build character too.
Mark, talk about the next 2 shows.
The next 2 shows, as you said, they're exciting. With our next one in March, it's called Drawn to the Music, because we get kids to listen to 1 or 2 of the pieces that we're playing. They send in drawings. We show the drawings as we play on a screen above the orchestra. That's really exciting for the kids. They love to do that. They love to see their drawings in public as we're playing. So the theme of it's sort of water and nature, you might say. So we're doing like 4 sea interludes by Benjamin Britten. We're doing the Smetana Vltava. We're doing Debussy Afternoon of the Four, and so it's kind of rustic.
Nice.
And then we're also doing a new piece by Tim Cohen called Old Man of the Mountain that he's written specially for us. It's going to be very exciting. Has a narrator. And then in May, our final show is we're doing a sort of a mix of quote unquote classical music. It's called From Bernstein to Broadway. And so the first half is like Aaron Copland, and then Bernstein's Symphonic Dances from West Side Story. It's an incredible piece. And then the second half is a selection of bits from Broadway shows, like some of the classics, like Oklahoma, Mary Poppins, this kind of thing. And so I think, and it represents in a way what the Phil is, which is this eclectic organization that as Gary said, wants to show that live music is just sizzling with excitement. That forget about listening to a CD or to YouTube. If you're, I can guarantee you your money back. I mean it. If you don't have a great time at the film.
Wait, what?
You're not getting your money back.
Yeah, no. The money comes in, it's staying.
Staying, okay. But I feel confident that they will have a fantastic time. Any audience member of any age coming to a show from the Phil is going to have they're going to say, when is the next concert?
Excellent.
And I think that has a lot to do with you guys, which what you talked about was the engagement. In theater, there's that fourth wall between, the stage and the audience, and you break down that fourth wall you've done it here today, just talking about the stories, and, it makes the piece just be you're part of the performance, the listening to your stories. It's fantastic.
So every week we do a Santo Insurance quote of the week. We have our, Donna loves her puns, so you got a good plug in there for your company.
Insurance with the quote of the week.
So we have our Santo Insurance quote of the week, and I'm actually going to take credit for finding this for Mark, because he said it himself. And his quote of the week here is, "One of my greatest pleasures in life is to help anyone of any age to surpass their own expectations of themselves in some arena. And this comes about through a blend of passion, respect, fun, dedication, energy, and love, and the belief that our potential is limitless." An amazing quote. It was like the first thing I read when I do my research on everybody, and I'm like, wow, that's the greatest quote we've heard so far. And it talk about that quote.
I said it because I believe it. I remember, in a way, nothing to do with music. So I was hiking in. Well, one of the great things about being a musician is you get to travel to fantastic places. So my quartet had a residency in Banff, Canada. There's a wonderful art center in Banff. It's a ski resort. So we'd taken the day off and we were hiking, and the other violinist in the quartet, a woman called Sharon, was with us, and we were going up quite a steep incline to the sort of a col between two peaks, and it was quite steep. And she said, "No, it's not for me." I said, "Come on, Sharon, you can do it. I know you can do it, and the view is going to be totally worth it." No. Anyway, I sort of egged her on. I cajoled her, I shoveled her on, and of course she does get to the top, and she was ecstatic. She was so happy, and she says, "Oh, thank you. I never would have done it without you." And so it's really the same thing. So I realize that it's just fear that's getting in her way. It's not that she's not physically able to do it, right? So and that for me was a delightful moment, even better than the view actually, just to see her response to having done something that she didn't think she was able to do. And I think it's the same with any endeavor in life. If we can somehow get people to, as I said, exceed their own expectations themselves, I mean, what's better than that?
Right.
In any endeavor. So if I can do a little bit of that, that's great.
Well, this has been a wonderful podcast. Thank you guys so much. I know we run on for those people out there watching live, but I'm sorry that you didn't get any work done. But it was a great show, and
it was worth the extra 10 minutes.
Yep. So NewHampshirePhil.org. Please check out our podcast here, UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. Right, Ed?
That's correct.
All right. And
help us grow
Donna,
this.
go ahead. Send us off.
Well, I was going to say, just help us grow this, like you said. Check us out.
Yes.
And we want to share these stories, so again, we can help people learn and follow their passions and stuff. And thank you both. You've both been wicked awesome company.
Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you.
Greg.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
The views and opinions opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.